evolving role of PR in a digital world, balancing traditional and digital media at the same time. I'll be introducing our moderator and speakers, and then I'll request all of them to kindly please join me over here on stage. This session, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be chaired by Akshaara Lalwani, founder and CEO, Communicate India. She'll be joined on stage by Nanda, Padmanabhan, head corporate communications, bankbazaar.com, Poornima Gulati, associate director, PR and corporate communications, nobroker.com, Puja Asopa, head corporate communications, United Breweries Limited, Shakambhari Thakur, general manager, corporate communications and brand management, Bosch Group in India, Sipika Khandka, director, head of corporate communications, employee engagement, I beg your pardon, Mintra, Tinu Sherian Abraham, director and head, global PR and media relations, UST. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please request all of you to clap loudly for the wonderful panel that we have. Can I request all my panel members to join me over here on stage, please?
Firstly, I thought the first panel was hard because I had extremely talented, highly credible people. It's another one. So firstly, thank you to each one of you guys for doing this. I think we've had a lovely conversation. I think the audience will get a lot of insight. But without any further delays, I'm going to quickly sort of reach out and start with this age-old question, is traditional dead? Should we move into new age media? What works? And I think there couldn't be anyone better to address this than yourself. So I'm going to start with Nanda. And if you could share your thoughts. And then, of course, Tinu, to lead from there.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me over. I think, when we talk about traditional versus modern, we should just go back to what we're doing, and that is PR. And the R in PR is what is the most important, which is relations. So regardless of what media you are using, it is ultimately about building those bridges, building those relations. And you cannot let go of what we call legacy media and just focus on what is contemporary, because there is a lot of weight, a lot of history that the older media carries. And it is the learnings from these older media that, in terms of be it magazines, be it newspapers, be it other media like television, for instance, it is the relationship building that we have learned through PR, the way we've learned to connect with our audience using these, that we are carrying forward even today when we use newer channels, newer digital media. So the ultimate core or essence of PR remains, whether you are legacy media, whether you are traditional media, or whether you are more contemporary media.
I think that's wonderful, because I think people have this shiny object syndrome. I'm sure you guys have studied it. Oh, should we do traditional? Should we do new age? Let's all run behind new age because it's talking. So it's about evolution, and I think that's perfect. It's about learning, adapting, all of that. I think the most important aspect, even if you have the best media relations, let's do context setting. Let's really understand what, someone says, "Arey, maine journalist ko phone kiya, coverage nahi aaya." Let's leave that aside. And let's really talk about what's the real issue and how do we address that. And I would love Sipika to talk about the foundation there.
Sure. Thank you, Akshaara. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. Very excited to be talking here and drawing a lot of learnings from some of the best in the industry. Coming to your question, Akshaara, I think it's very important to begin from the end and look at who your target audience is, and therefore what is your story or your message that you want to drive there. And once you know that building visibility for this target audience that you've identified is key to you, I think the question no longer remains in the realm of corporate communications. It becomes a very mathematical problem, which is about how do you ensure maximum probability to this target audience that you've identified. Now, having said that, let's take, for instance, the case of building a corporate narrative. Traditional PR, I think hands down is still going to be the most important epicenter of drawing out that impactful narrative for you. But now come to the consumer world, and for instance, let's take the Gen Z example, and I'm very happy to see a lot of you here. But we for sure know that this consumer is perhaps not going to pick up the broadsheet in the morning and read that news that is important for you over a morning cup of coffee. And therefore, what is important for them is what you need to think. And this consumer of yours could be going to a digital medium, but it doesn't end there. Because this digital medium could be very niche, could be one that doesn't even have good viewership or a great readership, but this is relevant to this consumer, and that's where you need to go. So yeah, that's what I'd like to say.
Absolutely. And who better than, I would say, someone who's handling multiple divisions. I think everybody knows B2B marketing can be hard, has its challenges, right? And, you know, who better to talk about the challenges? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out two panelists over here. I'm trying to see who to go to first. But I think, Shakambhari, if you could address, you know, being with Bosch, you handle so many industries, right? There's always a challenge, and she's had a commendable job of getting her own Insta and LinkedIn page for Bosch India. So I think I know how hard that is, but I would love to know your insights of how would you reach different stakeholders, because they vary.
So thank you, Akshaara, and obviously it's great to be here. As most of you would know, Bosch is a brand which deals with multiple business divisions, which caters right from mobility to power tools to consumer appliances. So for us, it's not really one set of audience. And if you have a page which is Bosch India and which is how the external world sees you, it is very important to be catering to the audience with the right kind of message and also the kind of tools that they are consuming the messages from. I'll take an example of, in 2022, we completed 100 years of Bosch in India. And one of the things that we did was, inauguration of a smart campus. Now, taking a step back, if you have an announcement like this, how do you go about, what is the message? Who is the audience? What is the intended outcome? And what are the channels you have in your hand? So when we say that, okay, for our campus is smart, sustainable, secure. So when you talk about smart, what makes it smart? And what is a channel which is most appropriate to bring home that message? So while your press release had all the things listed on what is the announcement, we went to LinkedIn where we had our own videos about talking about each of these smart solutions. But talking about cross-pollination, we actually had influencers. And within influencers, we identified nano-influencers because that's what is targeting and how do you reach out to your audience. So the idea of reaching out to nano-influencers was while their followership may not be so high, but the engagement rates are pretty high. And if your nano-influencer is telling that, hey, I went to the campus, I've experienced their air quality monitoring system or smart parking, it lends a very different kind of credibility. So I think between traditional and modern and digital that we are talking about, it's a lot of cross-pollination and a lot of collaboration and everything coming together.
Absolutely, and we think it's only many a times in the D2C space, the more consumer-facing, but you can see that it's even blended in other spaces as well, including employee engagement. When you talk about PR, people think it's external comms, right? But there is also, and you must have seen it in COVID, every IT company was saying we want to attract the best talent, okay? It cannot happen only traditionally. There has to be different ways of doing it, right? And it has to be internal comms, which is your own digital handle. So I would like, Sipika, if you could talk a little bit about it, and Tinu as well, about how you would address that.
Okay, I want to start with saying, before even saying traditional versus digital, I want to start that traditional is also not dead. 60 years back, people were saying print is dead, and now they are 60 years later, they're still saying that print is going to be dead in the future. No. Print or other forms of traditional media are actually growing. And if you look at in India, Times of India is only 9th by circulation in India. And all the other nine of them are regional publications. So print or traditional media are increasing, and it is going to be there for a long future. So traditional media is going to be here to stay. And it is important that as communicators, PR professionals, that we continue to build relationship with the journalist. I make it a point to meet a journalist for a lunch at least almost every week. And it is important to continue that, building the relationship for getting your story out there. Having said that, I don't think it's a misconception that traditional and digital are competing media. No, it is actually complementary, and you can always work them and get them to work together. I just want to quote one example. When I worked at Ola, we saw this tweet by a Twitter influencer, Gabbar Singh, many of you might follow him, about 1 million in followers. This is pre-digital pay era, and where you have to pay the taxi cab fare by cash, and you expect them to give you the balance amount. So he compared this to buying samosas and getting chiller back. He compared and made it humorous tweet about it. And we saw that, and we actually found his address through a close friend and a common friend. We sent him a pack of samosas to his home. And we said, hey, we noted your feedback. We saw it. Thank you for your feedback. But here are some samosas that you can enjoy. And he was quite surprised to see that approach from us, and he tweeted again about it. And it went viral with 1 million followers. And the next day, it was on page 1 of Times of India in the Delhi edition. So you can always mix digital and traditional media if you find the right opportunities for it.
Yeah, maybe just adding to that point, I think as communications professionals today, we need to embrace the fact that the way the news trajectory is going to flow is no longer unidirectional. It has become very bidirectional, which means that your purveyors of news are your traditional media, your digital media, of course, but also your customers, your employees, or the brands that are there on your platform, and what is their side of story for your brand. That becomes very important when you look at the larger strategic picture of shaping your communications narrative. One example that I would like to talk about is currently Myntra, my organization, we are having the largest flagship sale event, which is the Big Fashion Festival. While the starting point to that is really your corporate pieces, your media interviews, etc. But how are employees talking about the excitement that is there in the organization? Or how are some of the brands talking about what they have to offer on their own LinkedIn channels or maybe Instagram, so on and so forth. And I therefore think you need to have a very holistic picture and know that your purveyors of news have gone beyond some of your digital, your news channels, and they are your real people on ground, influencers or not, but everybody's voice matters today.
No, absolutely. And of course, a bone of contention, which is crisis comms. I have two ladies here who have, I think, have seen it and will be very important. In a crisis, generally most people panic. You heard what Tinu said, is that a customer abuses you. Sometimes you don't always have to panic or retaliate, or you can bring humor in. But sometimes you could be a listed company, there could be other challenges, it could be more serious crisis. So I'm going to ask two ladies. I have the head of marketing of No Broker here, and I also have of United Breweries, I think some really heavy weights. So I'm going to leave it to both of them, Poornima, for you to talk about crisis in a space like real estate and just generally. And yeah, and then.
So hi everybody. I'll talk about crisis. Thankfully, No Broker has not gone through it, and I'm very grateful about it. but as somebody who's seen the evolution of traditional and digital media up close, like I joined PR about 10 years ago, where I realized that traditional is like the king. Although Tinu made a very right point that 60 years ago, people were saying that traditional is dead. Today also they are saying the same thing. It is not going to be possible. In crisis, I feel that one very clear example that we all have read about is Maggie. When the whole crisis broke about Maggie, for 1.5 weeks, nobody from Maggie team actually interacted with media or put out any news or put out any comment or quote, which which exploded the whole, the whole controversy about it. It is important for any company, of course, of the size of Maggie and Nestle to have that kind of team in place, because they did not have it. It infuriated in some this thing, and a lot of media who were reaching out to them, because there's no person who's supposed to give any comment, so they did not know how to handle that crisis. Another thing that we've noticed now in digital times is that the communication is not one way, it is two-way. While you feel that it is easy for you to promote your brand in any set of audiences, any set of people through digital, because you can reach out through multiple channels, but you also have to bear the consequences of it being a very, not a unidirectional conversation. People can comment. The comment tool in any Instagram or Twitter or anywhere is, it's there. The other thing is, if somebody from No Broker in any other brand, if they have a good experience, they would probably go and talk to 10 people about it. Okay, hey, I got a home through No Broker and it was a lovely experience. Or anybody who's had a good experience through any other brand, they'll talk to 10 people. But if somebody has a bad experience, they will talk to 100 people about it. They will post it on all social media channels that they are capable of and try to get some sort of, assurance from the brand that they will set things right. So in these days, while I feel that it is a good thing that we have digital media, where the brand can directly communicate with the audience, it's very important. And how you can sort of mitigate that is because now there are people like you have your brand founders who can have a proper personality of their own and they can interact with audience. You can have brand personalities through which you can interact with audience. You can always put more of positive posts to mitigate the effect of negative posts that come on through it. So I will not say that you can foresee a crisis. Sometimes you can, but most of the times when a crisis happens, you cannot foresee it. But when you can't foresee it, you have to ensure that you have enough friends in your fraternity, whether it is media, whether it is other digital channels, to ensure that it doesn't blow to the proportions that Nestle had to deal with.
Sorry, I'm going to just step in. How many students here? I've met a bunch of students from NMIMS, starting their careers. Hands up. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick learning from what she said. When crisis hits, you want those relationships. Even Tinu said, and I'm sure you did media rounds in Mumbai the other day. So when I hear people saying, nahi, phone pe kar denge, email bhej denge, relationships still are very, very important. And you need to have them before a crisis. Of course, a crisis manual and best practices, I'm sure Tinu will come to. But I'd love
small point before that. So another thing I want to add to the Maggie bit is that one, they did not have a proper PR system in place, and the other thing was that they were very late to join the digital brand wagon. So while everybody on Twitter and everywhere has started talking already, they did not know how to take care of that crisis, and that is why it blew to the proportions that it did. So use digital. I mean, it's a good tool. Use it. Nobody's going to wait for next 24 hours to have your news in print and so see your thing. So use digital in those cases. When you have to distribute information, traditional is your best tool, but when you have to deal with information, digital is your best tool.
Thanks, Poornima. Wow, that's my favorite topic, crisis. I'll tell you one thing about crisis that I have learned in my career. It always happens when it's Friday night or Saturday morning. It always wants to strike you when it's the weekend or you're on a holiday or just when you have something else to do or there's a lot of other work. Having said that, I have handled quite a lot of crises in my different jobs, and I can tell you, no matter what kind of a crisis manual you have and what kind of training you have given to your team and to your important stakeholders like the management team, there's no book that actually prepares you for a crisis when it comes. Yes, there's a process to it. Number one, you should not panic, and we were talking about this before the session. What happens is the moment something comes up, whether it could be a product issue, quality issue, it could be an employee issue, it could be some customer talking about you, it could be a false report about you. The number one thing is to learn to not react and to know when to react and to have your story together to know your story internally in terms of who your stakeholders are, who are connected to that particular crisis that are there. Have your management team, etc., on board so they know what's going on. Have your statement ready just in case it is talked about in media, and to track the media and be aware about it. Now, the other aspect is social media when we talk about digital. Obviously, we've just talked about, Tinu also just talked about traditional media. It's credible, it's authentic, that is going to stay. Its importance, significance is never going to reduce when you compare it to digital media. Having said that, the virality of a story is very much there on social media, on digital media, when customers, especially your audience, or whoever goes and takes to digital tools and talks about things, it spreads very fast, and before you can actually react, it's out there. But again, I would go back to, you need to know when to react, and many times emotions run high within an organization in particular when there can be pressure on communications, corporate communications, or the PR team to have, let's communicate immediately, and that's not necessary to do. One should wait and see. And again, the relationships that you just talked about, that's when they come into place. When you develop relationships with your journalists, and these are credible journalists, they will definitely want to hear your side of the story. And there are several ways of how you communicate to the media out there about, what's going on.
Okay, I'm going to take some, that was really interesting, Pooja. Just a quick thing. I mean, how many people in digital? How many times you go to a client who's traditional and say, unko samajh mein nahi aa raha hai, they don't understand, they don't get it, they don't. And I promise, I hear so many people saying when they go onto the client side, oh, everything will be amazing. But education and educating different stakeholders is something, Pooja, we were talking about, and I'd like you to amplify that. I'd like you to mention the crisis you went and how educating different stakeholders.
That's very, very important. I use the word educate, and we don't have to be shy of that. Just like you have people in different fields who know their stuff, whether it's finance, marketing, sales, technical. If you're in a pharma company, it could be your scientists, etc. People in our field should never feel that we don't know our stuff. We know our stuff best, and never ever forget that. So there's no, you shouldn't shy away from educating. In fact, it's need of the hour, whether you do it formally through having a crisis session in the organization, or even reaching out to your different stakeholders. It could be someone in a factory, it could be a quality plant head, it could be somebody in sales, but having a conversation with them and explaining to them that you come to us, you come to the PR or corporate communications team, and do not engage with media or any other stakeholders until we have our story together and you let us know the facts. Checking on facts is extremely important. And at the same time, educating them on not to react, and how they should be prepared in case if somebody reaches out. All they need to do is direct them to us.
I would just add on there. I think there is this interesting case, and I can't help but talk about it. There was an influencer who made a statement, and he just happened to be wearing a branded merchandise. Now, by virtue of just wearing that branded merchandise, which had nothing to do with the whole episode, the amount of communications that started happening with the communications team was just insane. And sometimes talking about education, it's just important to understand, and we talked about remaining calm and, and educating people, but I think it's important to understand, is there a need to talk? And if you need to talk, what is it that you really need to talk? Because at time of crisis, a lot of people are giving you suggestions. Hey, let's do a statement. Hey, let's do a call a press conference. We should release our own video saying something. But the choice that we made was that we will let it go. We will not make any statement, and it will die a natural death. And that's what happened. I think credible media, what they also do is, at least in print, when they actually printed the photograph, they cropped the picture to remove the brand. So sometimes it's very important to also understand when is there a need to speak.
Also, it is, just to add that, it's nearly impossible to prepare for every crisis, but it's also good to have a crisis communication plan in place. It's like an insurance, right? You know, you wish you don't have to use it, but when a crisis hits you, it's good to have that. So we can always learn from crises that other companies have. I make a note of every crisis that could potentially come to my company, including the EY crisis that's happening right now. So crisis will help you. Learning from the crisis of others also will help you better.
Absolutely. And okay, we spoke about crisis, heavy topic, share prices fluctuate, heat, CEOs get sacked. But important part is you need to know when to react and when not to. Sometimes not reacting could actually be beneficial. Like we mentioned, in some cases, not reacting, like the Nestle case, could actually be detrimental. So, like I said, there is a dichotomy. We'll end on a slightly nicer note and a slightly more interesting note. And I'm going to come to you, where you spoke about how when we do influencer marketing, right, and how you utilize not only traditional media but new age. And you were talking about Sudha Murthy. It was you, sorry, my bad. Too many talented people, too many campaigns, but please do. I would really love if you could talk about that. I think that was a great example.
Yeah, so I think we were talking about, the digital media and the newer ways, and these are just means to an end, right? So we had Sudha Murthy coming at Bosch during Women's Day, and she was very particular on how we would be promoting the content that was made. And although we would think about her as someone very conventional and the kind of influencer she is, but her office was very particular about doing a cross collab post. So we did, from a Bosch India Insta handle, we did a collab post with her. And that way we were able to reach out to her followers, and in turn she was able to reach out to all our followers, because the room was not big enough to be able to, with 39,000 employees, I'm sure you can understand, no room can fit everybody, and how much ever we try with the hybrid and the digital ways. Because it was also available for later viewing, I think it helped. The outreach was just enormous.
Wonderful. So again from the last panel also, to talk or not to talk, creative, different stakeholders. I'm going to ask Poornima and Nanda, would you like to add anything on personalization, any learnings that you would like to end with?
Sure. I think people see real estate as a brand where you see personalization may not be happening to that extent. But we deal with different sets of consumers, which is tenants, landlords, sellers, and buyers. Tenants are typically in the age group of 18 to 35. Your buyers would start from 35 onwards, and your sellers and landlords would be typically in the age group of 50 and above. Now you need to target them separately. Some would be in traditional media, some would be in digital media. People, I know for my tenant, TG, is not reading newspaper as much, but they are definitely following Asharan Hegde on Instagram. They are probably following a Sarthak Ahuja on Instagram. So that is where digital media helps a lot. You have your seller TG, who also, where you can do some bit of targeting. For instance, they wouldn't be reading they won't be on Instagram so much, but they would be reading a Navbharat Times or a Lok Satta. So that is where you need to figure out whether Times of India is the right fit for them, whether influencer marketing is the right fit for them. And again, I'd like to say that no broker is not the similar business like a Myntra or a Zomato or a Swiggy, where there are impulse purchases. Nobody will buy a house because somebody is asking them to, or an influencer is telling them to. But people will buy a house when they consider to buy a house, when a buyer has that intent. Then is no broker the first choice. That is what you need to keep reinforcing in the consumer mindset. That is where no broker should stand, that no broker has a zero brokerage proposition, whether people know about it when they think of buying. So, we try to target different sets of consumers through different mediums and channels, and that is how it works.
For us, Bank Bazaar is a BFSI brand. We fall under BFSI, we are a fintech. So for us, again, our products are either necessity or they are aspirational. So again, it's not an impulse buy. You, like Poornima said, you don't decide one fine day, that's the credit card I want. There's a lot of research, there's a lot of things that goes behind finalizing your personal finance product, be it investment, borrowing, whatever it is. So for us, as a brand, we're an older brand, we're not typically a startup, but we're entirely digital. So for us, we knew that the core of our proposition was consumer education. We needed to reach out to people, educate them about everything from how safe it is, from how you remain safe, to what is the best way you can choose the right product for you. So education has always been at the core of what we do. At the same time, we have a huge age group, a huge demographic difference when we talk about who our customers are. And it's not always possible that we have one single medium to, or one single way to reach out to them. So identifying audience, this kind of a very detailed audience segmentation, and reaching out to them with the information they need in the format they need, in the format they prefer to consume, that has been the core of our strategy at all points. So this means that for us, when we talk about our Gen Xers and older people, then we have to depend on traditional media, to reach out to them. But when it is the younger generation, we have to reach out to them via digital. And when we talk about Gen Z and very soon Gen Alpha, everything is going to change. The way we approach them, the way we talk to them, the way we hold their attention and build trust. Because ultimately that is what it is all about, right? That your consumer trusts you to the extent that, to the maximum extent that they can. And as a, somebody in comms, your idea, your main USP is to know where your audience is, what is it that they like, and what is the best way to reach out to them. So you definitely need to be agnostic about the kind of media you use, so long as, not agnostic, but impartial about the kind of media you use, because it's not just your call, it's about the audience and where they need you to be.
And it also depends on the sector, right? If you're an Alcobev, you have policies, you have guardrails in place. And I'm not going to ask you the question about surrogate marketing because I'm sure you've got it like 100 times earlier. But let's talk about innovation and then I'll quickly wrap up. Anything interesting that you can share, because it's such a hard space to market, right?
Yeah, so while, yes, Alcobev is extremely challenging. There are a whole lot of restrictions when it comes to when it comes to engaging with your consumer, and all companies are subject to that. Now, even with those challenges, there are ways which you can connect with your consumer, and I can, when we talk about PR, traditional and digital, I'll talk about the recent launch of Queenfisher. That's a beer that we had launched earlier this year. It started in Goa and then Mumbai, Maharashtra, and then, the entire Northeast. It's yet not available in Bangalore. But when we did the launch, it was an event where we had, celebrities, and we had a lot of social media influencers come. So in addition to the traditional media that interacted with our leadership, those were proper interviews. We even had an interaction with Adgully, by the way. So those were good, proper interviews, but we also had a lot of them come there, and it was almost like a red carpet with the paparazzi there and all that. So that created a lot of buzz in digital media, and there were a lot of conversations in Bombay. And mind you, this was actually, this was before the beer was actually available in Mumbai, and we had done this activity. And then from there we took off and we did a whole lot of targeted PR. So, all I can say is that the digital part of it complemented what we did through traditional. There was a lot of buzz, and obviously your MAV that you count when you get with digital media, with print traditional media, that was exceptionally high, but the buzz that we got through social media and digital media itself created such a lot of buzz that even now we get asked here that when are you actually launching Queenfisher?
Super. Thank you so much. I'm just going to leave it to Sipika, and if you want to add anything that you think that everyone could gain from, I think we've covered most of it, but would love to see if there's something you would want to add.
I think speed is gaining a lot of prominence, and while some of my peers here spoke about the importance of speed in managing crisis, but also in terms of when there is a positive development and how soon your leadership or your company handles starts to talk about it has become important as well. And just leaving with this last thought that continues to intrigue me, which is that is PR a part of your content strategy, or is it vice versa? So that's the end note.
Just to add, again, don't limit your PR team with just PR communication professionals. Add experts in digital as well. Add SEO experts. Add journalists who understand content, and even digital influencers to your team. That will help you, attack both traditional and digital together.
Wonderful, guys. I think we've had tremendous insight. So life doesn't get easier. Whether you should talk, not talk, content is important, media relations is important. You have to be agnostic. One size doesn't fit all. And there's just so much that there is to learn, and it varies from where you are, which company you are, which stage you're at, what the brand guidelines are. So thank you, each one of you. Thank you for taking the time out. It's been amazing having you guys, and thank you very much. I hope it was beneficial. Thank you.